opening page of the Iliad, and with its cover illustration there on the left side. We're opening up Iliad, and we're going to look at the first book. And here's the summary. And do know that you can get this summary on our website. This is my summary that I wrote out, and it gives you a reference to the line numbers of the different things in this summary. So if you'd like to own your own little printout of this, you can just go right to our website. And the first book is, of course, The Rage of Achilles. And so this is where our book opens, the quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon. And as we start, we are immediately aware of the connection between the story here and the gods. So, of course, that's part of it. And therefore, as we plunge in here, I thought we might all just like to remember quickly here the gods, the great Greek gods. There are 12, so I will show you these. We'll just do it. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but it's just nice to remember because they're going to intervene in the story all the time and save people's lives and condemn people to death and save people and all of these sorts of things. One little note about them before we quickly go over the 12. They were carried in by the Indo-Europeans, you see. So their religion, their gods, are the same Bronze Age charioteer Indo-European culture that brings in these ideas about what a great hero is like, what a hero should behave like, what an Achilles is like, what an Agamemnon is like, and what Zeus and Hera will do with Achilles and Agamemnon. So keep that in mind. Number one, Zeus. We know Zeus is the king, the emperor, the top of the heap, the number one. And I've put the Latin name next to his name so that you all can associate, is the Roman version of these great gods. The Romans adopted the whole Greek pantheon and then renamed them. They liked the whole thing, and so they had their Jupiter, who worked the same way as Zeus did. So it's nice to know the Latin name. So Zeus overthrew his father, became the supreme ruler of the gods. He's lord of the sky, rain god, cloud gatherer, thunderbolt. So we see that all through all the great poems. The thunderbolt, whoosh, thunderbolt comes down. His wife is Hera, but as you know, he's constantly cheating on her. So a lot of the stories of the Olympian family is Hera, mad at Zeus because she catches him with somebody. She's always catching him with somebody. And he was known to punish those who lie or break oaths. His tree was the oak, of course, the great tree of all the trees, the oak. His oracle is the Dodona and the land of the oak trees. So that is Zeus or Jupiter. Number two, Poseidon. He's the brother of Zeus. He's the lord of the sea. So he's very important to Greece. He's very important to the seamen of Greece. He's married to Aphrodite, a granddaughter of Oceanus. His weapon is a trident, which can shake the earth. So all of this earthquake, he's second only to Zeus in the power among the gods. He's under the ocean. And so we see him, we hear about him. Travel on the ocean, everybody is concerned about Poseidon or Neptune. Third brother is Hades, and he is the lord of the underworld. Nobody in Greece wants to go to the underworld. Nobody likes it. It's not a nice place to be. If you get stuck there, it's bad news. So nobody likes or wants to be anywhere near the Hades land. And if you went down to the land of Hades, that was not a good thing. The same name in Rome is Pluto. God of wealth, due to precious metals mined from the earth, naturally, because you're digging it all the way up. So that's an interesting combination. And he has a helmet that makes him invisible. So that's very nice sometimes. And pitying and terrible, capricious, his wife of Persephone, and you know the whole story of Persephone. Has to go down to the underworld and be with her husband, and then she gets to come back to the earth every year. So then 4 is Hestia, or Vestal Virgin in Rome. Zeus' sister. She's a virgin goddess. She's a goddess of the hearth, the symbol of the house. childbirth, all these things, and the Vestal Virgin in Rome. This was maybe the most important temple in the Roman Forum, the House of the Vestal Virgins. 5 is Hera. Hera is the wife, Juno in Italy. Hera is the wife of Zeus. Protector of marriage, takes special care of married women, which is kind of interesting, isn't it, that her husband's always cheating on her. So she was irritated all the time about this. And most of the stories about Hera have something to do with her mad at Zeus because he's out sleeping with somebody else. So Hera's sort of annoying most of the time when she comes on the scene. 6, she will be very involved in the Trojan War. Ares, who's the god of war. Mars in Rome. We really know him more as Mars, the god of war. Son of Zeus and Hera, disliked by both his parents, which is kind of cute, kind of funny, isn't it? That the god of war, nobody likes him. Well, that's a statement of the truth. Nobody likes war. The god of war is considered murderous, bloodstained, caught in an act of adultery with Aphrodite. Her husband was able to publicly ridicule him. His bird is the vulture, which makes sense, doesn't it? And his animal, but it isn't very nice that it's a dog, so I don't like that part of it. Number 7, Athena. Now, Athena is the goddess we all love, the goddess of Athens. Minerva in Latin, daughter of Zeus, and of course we all love, sprang full grown, full armored from the forehead of Zeus, so she has no mother. I always think of her as a terrible headache. She's goddess of the city of Athens, handicrafts, agriculture. She invented the bridle. And you see, all these things are so telling. They're just so interesting about her as a goddess. Imagine what she meant, the inventor of the bridle, tamer of horses, the trumpet, the flute, the pot, the rake, the plow, the yoke, all these good things, the ship. She's the embodiment of wisdom, reason. She's Zeus's favorite child. Of course she is. So she gets to use the thunderbolt. Her city, Athens. Her tree is the olive, of course. The owl is her bird. Virgin God. Wonderful God. We love Athena, Minerva. Here's Apollo. Apollo's interesting for one reason. He's the one God who doesn't change his name. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you really kind of want to find out about that. Why? From Greece, does not change. Apollo is a name everybody recognizes. Son of Zeus, has a twin sister, Artemis. He's the god of music, god of mathematics, all these things, medicine, so healing, unity, order, the god of light, the god of truth. Really an extraordinary figure in the pantheon. And Aphrodite, Venus in Rome, in Latin, goddess of love, desire, beauty. In addition to her gifts, she has a magical girdle. It compels anyone she wishes to desire her, but she's so beautiful, who wouldn't desire her? And her birth, springing up from the foam. The myrtle is her tree. The dove and the swan are her birds. Hermes, the son of Zeus. Mercury in Latin, and that's another name where we really know Mercury more likely than Hermes. The fastest of gods, the runner god. He wears the winged sandals, the winged hat. He carries the magic wand. God of commerce, the guide for the dead, take them down to the underworld. He invents musical instruments and the musical scale, astronomy, weights, and other things. Then there's Artemis, Diana. She's the daughter of Zeus. Her twin brother is Apollo, the lady of wild things, the huntress, the hunter goddess, the protector of the young. Quite a number of boyfriends. Diana has quite a number of boyfriends. And 12, Vulcan in Latin, Hephaestus in Greece, the son of Zeus, was ugly, so that sets him apart from all these other Greeks. Lame, he's the god of fire, very important, of fire and the forge. He's the smithy, the blacksmith, the armorer of the gods, so very, very important. And the patron of the blacksmiths and the weavers, and he loves peace. So those are our gods that we'll meet, and now we want to turn to the Rage of Achilles. Here it is up on our screen from the very first pages of the Iliad. Now we're looking at Robert Fagel's English, and he of course can't make English do exactly what Greek does, but he's going to create English sentences that come close to the size and the rhythm of the Greek. Now, he knows he can't create the rhyming patterns, but he can create English that has a rough similar structure and certainly the meaning, and then create lines and paragraphs together that will come as close as possible. It's definitely the most successful ever made, and if you'd like to read more about it, read the introduction to this by Bernard Knox, the great classicist in America, a wonderful man, has also passed away, and his introduction is about 67 pages. It is spectacular, and he tells you why Fagles is such a great translator. Now, what about the Greek? I'm not going to do a little Greek recitation for you because I'm not good enough that I could. But we should just note that this is poetry, so you all know that. These are lines of poetry that link the sound. It's oral first, and therefore it's recited for 1,000 years. So it's exactly the same as the Bible stories, the Hebrew Bible stories. So for 1,000 years, so say from Abraham down to Jeremiah, you have the recitation of the stories, the recitation of the Ten Commandments, the recitation of the stories every day, again and again and again, and kept correctly. So too in this Greek story. So these are old stories handed down to Homer, and he hears them and says, these are such great stories, I should write them down. So therefore, much of his poem is arriving at his hands from the previous rhetors, ready to go. Maybe the way you'd know a creed, I believe in the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That way, something you've said so many times that you know it exactly by heart. Well, that's the way this would be. There would be maybe 100 sentences right in a row where every single line that he writes down is the famous story he'd heard. But there are still places where he has to connect, or maybe something's missing, or he has some other information that he can put in. So in other words, the author's presence is there. You know it. And the most important authorial voice here is where you start and where you end. Because we know there were more stories. We know there was more after where this stops. So you see, everybody here understands, therefore, this author chooses where to start it and chooses where to end it. Now, we just get the start here on the screen, but if you go read the whole thing and then pick up your telephone and call me, we can talk about the ending, and you'll see that it's extraordinary, that the choice of this author as to where he ends this is the key to the whole book. I know that makes you want to run home and read it, doesn't it? Right? Right? You're all going to want to run and get this and see where he ends it. But you have to read the whole thing first. Now, what about the opening? Well, what would we say about the opening? Well, let's just read it here. Rage, goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles, murderous doom that cost the Achaeans countless loss, hurtling down to the house of death. So many sturdy souls, great fighter souls, but made their bodies carrion. Feast for the dogs and birds, and the will of Zeus was moving towards its end. Doesn't that just sound poetic right there, just the way I read that? Begin, muse, that is the god, goddess, who will help you write poetry. Begin, muse, when the two first broke and clashed. Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. That's the opening of the Iliad. That makes you want to read it right there, doesn't it? It's so great. Rage, goddess. It's brilliant. Just that opening is brilliant on the part of Fagles. Rage, that first word just gets you. Sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles. Murders, doom, the cause. Now, what god drove them to fight with such fury? Now, back to the poetry. You all know this is poetry in Greek. And Greek is very, very beautiful. Ancient Greek is filled with vowels. Other people wrote their languages with no vowels. So Phoenician, which started the alphabet, the ancient Phoenician was a language with no vowels. They had little diacritic marks. You'd put little things over. But you could still get the word with consonants, T's and P's. It was very... But they wouldn't write the vowel. It would be implied. The Greeks added vowels. So their language got way prettier, because you can imagine. So. What's the poetic structure of this? Well, I'm happy to tell you, because I just love the name of it. It is Dactylic Hexameter. Dactylic Hexameter. Now, you all know that, don't you? Don't you all know that the Iliad is written in Dactylic Hexameter? All right. D-A-C... I should have written this up here. D-A-C-T-Y-L-I-C. A dactyle is literally a finger of poetry, meaning a piece, a dactyle. D-A-C-T-Y-L-I-C, dactylic as the adjective, or dactyle. And hexameter is how many meters? Thank you very much, Joel. Exactly. 6 meters. So in other words, poetry, if you wish to analyze it in terms of the rhythm, you divide it into meters. The metric line of language. You divide it into the meters, and in this case, we have 6 measures. 6 meters, just like music. So we have 6 meters per line. And in each meter, we have a dactyle. And what is a dactyle in poetry? Well, a dactyle in poetry is 1 accented beat and 2 unaccented beats. 1 accented beat and 2 unaccented beats. So it is that way. Da, 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 da. That's 6 measures. That's it. That's what this sounds like in Greek. If you had someone here to read it to you tonight in Greek, it would be a dactylic hexameter. One of the big issues about the story is where to start. And he starts it right in the middle, in media res, right in the middle of things. Now, this is one of the oldest theories of great dramatic writing, and the person who will write the theory is Aristotle. And when Aristotle writes this advice to you writers and says, start your book or your story in the middle of things, he's thinking of the Iliad. That's what he thinks is the greatest book. So we're plunged into this fight between Agamemnon and Achilles. What god drove them to fight with such fury? Apollo, son of Zeus and Leto, incensed at the king. He swept a plague through the army. Men are dying, all because Agamemnon spurned Apollo's priest. Yes, Chryses approached the Achaeans' fast ships to win his daughter back, bringing a priceless ransom, and wearing high in hand, wound on a golden staff, the wreaths of the god, the distant deadly archer, meaning Apollo. He begged the whole Achaean army. Achaean means Greek, so begged the whole Achaean army, but most of all the 2 supreme commanders, Agamemnon and Menelaus, may the gods who hold the halls of Olympus give you prime city to plunder, and then safe passage home. That means the Iliad. Just set my daughter free. This is a priest whose daughter has been captured by the Greeks. And so here comes this priest, who is a priest of the temple of Apollo, and he comes and he asks these Greeks to release. And so all the Greeks cry out, respect the priest, accept his ransom. But Agamemnon won't put up with it. Now, here we are, plunged into this story, opening up in the war, in the Trojan War, in the 9th year of the war. So they've all been here. This is prolonged. This has been going on. And here is this crisis between these 2 leaders. And in just these opening pages, we have all these tensions and all this drama unfold in just the opening 1, 2, or 3 pages. And all of the story of Achilles and Agamemnon brings back into the world that is reading this story in the 700s, the essence of the ancient fighters, the old fighters, Achilles and Agamemnon. These are names and stories from the ancient past. And they're being told and they're being listened to in this 8th century world of Smyrna. In other words, you have the confrontation in a newer city-state, a newer, more prosperous, more peaceful city-state, a city that loves peace and commerce because it's getting rich on commerce, telling these older stories of these ancient fighters in this war which took place just up the coast, up in Troy. Now, for the Greeks, they love this story. They've been hearing it all their life. But there's a conflict. There's a conflict between the core of the Iliad and the world that is reading it. So the popularity of the Iliad and Homer brings with it a constant discussion about values in this very world. And the values they're discussing are the values of a warrior nation, a warrior people, the invader Indo-European Bronze Age charioteers, and the more urban, peaceful, commercial world of Homer. They're different. They're completely different. They're at odds. And in the confrontation, the poem allows these people to think about their own values. It's provocative, it's exciting, it's wonderful, it's great, but it's also a problem to be solved. And the same thinking is going on politically, right in these same city-states, about what kind of state to form. And the same debate is going on philosophically as to how the very earth, the universe, was formed. What is its core? What is the principle of its operation? What is the core of the order of the universe? All of these things are being debated in the same place at the same time that Homer writes this great poem. So the poem is not only a revelation of the values of all these people, but it's also a revelation of Greece in this kind of crisis of values, this kind of crisis of values and this debate over what is worth knowing and what is worth reading.